The Jews who stood within earshot of Jesus might have recognized the words of his anguished dereliction. My God, why have you forsaken me? The opening words of the 22nd Psalm might well have resonated with those familiar with the Hebrew hymn book. The sentiment expressed by that psalm and those words was likely familiar to all who wondered from time to time where God was or what God was about. If God is everywhere, why isn't God here? Jesus lamented. How is it that the one who had the most intimate relationship imaginable with God felt abandoned by the Almighty? Some say there was a time when Jesus became sin for us so God could forgive us. And at that moment, God turned away from Jesus because God cannot look upon sin. Yet God has been staring at sin since shortly after creation and apparently hasn't looked away before. Some say Jesus spoke the words for the crowd to hear, not the Almighty. But that makes the crucifixion a play, and Jesus the nail-pierced actor who knows and speaks his lines. If Good Friday is a theatrical production, we have been deceived. Just like all the other times Jesus spoke, I'm convinced he meant what he said. He was serious when he told us to love our neighbors, to love our enemies, to care for outcasts and others who are overlooked and abused. He meant every word when he offered forgiveness to those who wronged others and those who wronged him. I have no theory of atonement that explains the whys and wherefores of the cross. I think when you determine to live as Jesus lived, those in power, religious or political, cannot abide a selfless life of love, grace, and mercy. Jesus' death was inevitable, not because he had to die for us, but because he decided to live for God and show us how to live. I imagine there were innumerable times Jesus was lonely. I expect even when surrounded by followers, he felt isolated and different. But there is no more poignant cry of forsakenness than Jesus' unanswered question from the cross. He cried out words that had been on our lips, that had given expression to our alienation from one another and from the one who made us all. Hunkered down at home, fearful of a pandemic, isolated from the touch of those we love, wondering when this tragedy will end, lonely and dejected, we cry out, my God, why have you forsaken us? And we mean it.